Hey, what's going on, guys? I want to address today one of the things I've discovered about being here, being on YouTube, talking to all of you, is that some of you are definitely going to listen to what I have to say and at least consider it. I'm not saying you have to do everything I say. I definitely think you should be doing your own research. But one of the things I've talked about quite a bit, as far as something that's negative, is bulking and eating an exorbitant amount of calories to put on muscle. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's productive. In fact, I think it's actually counterproductive to putting on a lot of muscle mass, real muscle mass that you're not going to lose when you have to reduce calories. But that being said, I know that most of you are going to do it anyways. So, what I want to talk about today are things that you need to do to try to start to protect yourself if you're going to be doing something like bulking, because it could have a seriously negative effect on your health. And most of all, it could have a really negative effect on two areas that are very important if you're going to want to not only build muscle mass, but also function as a human being. And those are your intestinal tract and your brain. The first thing I want to talk about is taking care of your gut. A lot of you are loading calories into your mouths and you are putting all kinds of stuff through your intestinal tract. And I've said this so much before on this podcast. Your gut is probably the center of everything for your body, right? Whether you want to gains, whether you want to perform as a high level individual, it's your second brain, right? You have two brains. You have a brain up here and you have a brain in your gut. And the reason for that is because the brain and the gut are connected by a very long nerve called the vagus nerve. And if your gut is overgrown with unfriendly bacteria, a few different things can happen. One, it could seriously raise your levels of inflammation. Now, the reason why this is very bad, one of the reasons why this is very bad, is because your immune system, a large part of your immune system, is located in your gut. And it's separated from the waste and all the stuff you're putting through your intestinal tract at some points by a lining that's a single cell thick. So if that lining gets damaged, your immune system can become compromised and you can start to develop food intolerances, allergies, and a whole host of other things that can lead to chronic disease like cancer, diabetes, and even heart disease. The more inflammation you have in your gut, the more inflammation that's going to be going throughout your body. And you have to remember that in recent years, science has demonstrated that inflammation is actually the biggest cause of all the major diseases that we have: the cancer, the diabetes, heart disease, brain dysfunction, Alzheimer's, dementia. All these different things can happen because of high levels of inflammation. And this is going to be more likely if you're taking in tons of calories and throwing a bunch of stuff through your intestinal tract. And most of you who are bulking aren't really bulking on good food. You're bulking on whatever you can find. So this is going to be very important to consider. You need to be taking in fermented foods, things like kombucha, kimchi, raw sauerkraut, kefir. If you could tolerate dairy, doing things like yogurt. You really want these in your diet so that you can maintain a good level of friendly bacteria in your gut to keep that area healthy. Otherwise, it becomes overgrown with unfriendly bacteria. For those of you who might be experiencing some issues, you might want to look into a probiotic supplement. I think Caprobiotics is a really good brand. I don't have a particular brand that I use all the time. I tend to look for ones that are live, a live probiotic supplement that you can include in your regimen. So I usually look in the refrigerator box when I go into Clark's Nutrition over here, and you're looking for one that's at least 100 billion to include in there. The second thing you really want to be including in your diet is omega-3 fatty acids. And again, this is something that's super important for your brain and to reduce levels of inflammation. Your brain is about 60% fat, and about 30% of your cerebral cortex is made up of DHA, which is found in omega-3 fatty acids. Now, a lot of you might be taking fish oil, but you really want to be careful of the type of fish oil you're taking. You don't want one that's been sitting on a shelf out in the sunlight for a long period of time, because the heat and the light can start to render the fat. That can cause oxidation, and that can be very destructive for your body. So you want one that's been molecularly distilled, because you want to get whatever mercury that's been from the salmon or the fish that it's been from. You want to get that out of there. 2, you want to make sure that it's in triglyceride form, and 3, you want to make sure that there's a high ratio of DHA to everything else in there, because that'll help to protect the brain. Again, all the food you're eating while you're bulking causes inflammation, and that can seriously affect the brain. That can seriously cause you to get into situations of brain fog, reduce your mental performance, but not only that, it can actually reduce your levels of hormonal production, because a lot of people forget about this, but a lot of the precursors to anabolic hormones like testosterone that are formed naturally in our brain, DHEA, pregnenolone, all these things start to originate in the brain. Growth hormone starts to originate in the brain. And so if your brain is not functioning, and it's inflammatory, then you're not going to have a really good environment in which to produce those hormone precursors and the growth hormone and things like that. So taking an omega-3 supplement can seriously help to reduce the levels of inflammation there. Why do we need an omega-3 supplement? Why can't we just go out and eat fish? It's because a lot of the foods we eat, especially if you're bulking, are going to be higher in something called omega-6. Omega-3s and omega-6s work in opposition to each other. So you want a higher ratio of omega-3 in your diet, because you're already eating so much omega-6. Omega-6 causes inflammation, omega-3 reduces inflammation. And if you're bulking, you're probably eating a lot of foods that contain a lot of seed oils or plant oils, which contain a lot of omega-6, but you're also probably eating a lot of factory-raised meats. And if you're eating factory-raised meats as opposed to grass-fed meats, then you're increasing your levels of omega-6, and you're going to increase your levels of inflammation. A third thing that you really want to include in your regimen is other anti-inflammatory compounds. I guess that's not really a third thing, that's a bunch of things, but things like curcumin, making sure that you have enough vitamin D in your blood. Go get yourself tested, see if you have a vitamin D deficiency. Vitamin D is it's also known as a hormone in addition to being a vitamin. It can seriously affect your hormonal levels as far as production of testosterone. If you're not getting out in the sun or anything like that, being deficient in vitamin D can cause a whole host of really bad issues. So making sure that you have enough vitamin D. And if you are deficient in vitamin D, you want to be on a protocol of something like 35 IU per pound of body weight. Now, one thing about vitamin D you want to be careful of is that it also causes calcification. So if you're taking vitamin D, you also want to be on vitamin K2 and be taking a serving of vitamin K2 per day to reduce the possibilities of calcification. Now, I know that I just opened up a fire hose and kind of threw it at your face as far as information goes. There's a lot of information I just went over. If you have any questions, just email me over at info@warriorsoulapparel.com. I'll be happy to answer them. I tend to talk fast when I'm talking about a lot of things, so maybe you might have missed something. Also, we just put out a free keto adaptation guide and a free keto grocery list. And the way we separated this grocery list, I talked about this in a video yesterday, we separated it by different diet types. So we have a general keto list, we have a paleo kind of ancestral keto list, and we have one for those of you who are suffering from autoimmune diseases, who might want to try out an autoimmune protocol if you're in a flare-up or something like that. And you want to try out the autoimmune protocol, that's up there too. So I'll put a link below for that, and I will try to link some studies for some of the stuff that I said. And as always, like I said, hit me up if you need anything. Peace.